My name is Jack Morrison, and I should have listened to the pool guy. It was a Tuesday morning in September when everything started falling apart. I was under the hood of my Ford F-150, cursing at a stubborn alternator bolt, when I heard footsteps on the gravel driveway behind me. The steps were deliberate, measured, not the casual shuffle of a neighbor or the hurried click of my wife's heels. "Mr. Morrison." The voice carried a thick accent, Eastern European maybe. I wiped my greasy hands on my jeans and turned around. The pool cleaner stood there, maybe 45 years old, lean and weathered like old leather. His company shirt read, "Crystal Clear Pool Service," but his eyes held something darker than chlorine and pH strips. "Yeah, that's me. You hear about the pool?" I gestured toward the backyard where our kidney-shaped pool sparkled in the morning sun. It was my wife Sarah's pride and joy, installed 2 years ago when her law firm made her a partner. He didn't answer right away. Instead, he rolled up his left sleeve, revealing a tattoo on his forearm, a stylized trident surrounded by text I couldn't read. But I recognized the symbol. Azov Battalion, Ukrainian military. "My name is Victor. I clean pools, but I see many things." His English was careful, each word chosen deliberately. "Your wife, she has dangerous friends." I laughed, but it came out hollow. "Look, Victor, I appreciate the concern, but my wife's biggest danger is her caffeine addiction and maybe carpal tunnel from all that typing." Victor stepped closer. His eyes were pale blue, almost colorless, and they never blinked. "Get your family out before sunrise. Take children somewhere safe. Do not tell wife where." The laughter died in my throat. "What are you talking about?" "Your wife's boyfriend, Alexei Petrov. He is not investment advisor. He works for people who hurt America." Victor's voice dropped to barely above a whisper. "Tonight, they come to your house. They think you know things." My world tilted sideways. Boyfriend? Sarah didn't have a boyfriend. Sarah had me, had our kids, Emma, 16, and Danny, 14. Sarah had her precious career and her book club and her yoga classes. "You're mistaken," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to my own ears. Victor pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. Sarah, my wife of 18 years, locked in an embrace with a man I'd never seen before. Dark hair, expensive suit, predatory smile. The timestamp showed last Thursday at 2:47 p.m., when she'd told me she was in depositions all afternoon. "Alexei Petrov," Victor repeated. "Russian intelligence. Your wife, she gives him information about her clients, defense contractors, government officials. She thinks it is just pillow talk, but she is feeding shark." I stared at the photo until my eyes burned. Sarah's face was radiant, glowing with happiness I hadn't seen directed at me in years. Her hand rested on the man's chest, intimate and familiar. "Why are you telling me this?" My voice cracked like a teenager's. "Because tonight, Alexei brings friends. They want to know what you have seen, what you have heard. They will ask questions, and when you cannot answer..." Victor drew a finger across his throat. The alternator bolt suddenly seemed very unimportant. "I have to call the police. Police take time. Evidence, warrants, bureaucracy. You have maybe 8 hours." Victor pocketed his phone. "I suggest you move fast." I looked toward the house, where Sarah was probably getting ready for work, applying her makeup with the same precision she used to cross-examine witnesses. Where my kids were eating breakfast and complaining about homework and living their normal lives, completely unaware that their mother was apparently a traitor and their father was marked for elimination. "Why should I trust you?" Victor smiled for the first time, but it wasn't reassuring. "Because, Mr. Morrison, I am only one keeping you alive right now." He walked back toward his van, then paused. "One more thing. Your wife's best friend, Monica Chen from the law firm, she introduced Sarah to Alexei. This was not accident." The van pulled away, leaving me standing in my driveway with greasy hands and a head full of impossible information. I looked at my house, the house where Sarah and I had brought our babies home from the hospital, where we'd celebrated birthdays and anniversaries, where we'd built what I thought was a life together. Sunrise was still 14 hours away. I had work to do. The first thing I did was call in sick to my repair shop. 23 years of perfect attendance bought me some credibility with my assistant manager, who didn't even question it when I said I had food poisoning. The second thing I did was drive to Emma's school. "Dad?" Emma looked confused when the office called her out of AP chemistry. "What's wrong? You look terrible." I probably did. The last hour had aged me about 10 years. Pack up your stuff. You and Danny are going to stay with Grandma and Grandpa for a few days. But I have a test tomorrow, and Danny has soccer practice. Emma. I put my hands on her shoulders. At 16, she was almost as tall as Sarah, with the same sharp intelligence in her green eyes. I need you to trust me on this. Something's come up, and I need you both somewhere safe. She studied my face with the intensity she usually reserved for chemistry equations. Is this about Mom? The question hit me like a punch to the gut. What do you mean? She's been different lately. Happy, but secretively happy. And she's been going out more, staying late at work. Emma's voice dropped. Danny thinks she's having an affair. Smart kids. Too smart. We'll talk about it later. Right now, I need you to get your brother and come with me. Don't tell anyone where you're going, okay? Not your friends, not your teachers, nobody. Emma nodded slowly. Dad, are we in danger? I wanted to lie, to give her some comfortable fiction about work problems or family drama. Instead, I said, I don't know yet, but I'm going to make sure you're safe. An hour later, I was driving back from my parents' house in the next county. I'd told them the same story I'd told the kids. Family emergency, need to sort things out, would explain everything soon. My father, a retired police sergeant, had given me a long look but hadn't pressed for details. My mother had immediately started fussing over Emma and Danny, which was exactly what they needed. Now came the hard part. I pulled into my driveway at 3:30 p.m., noting that Sarah's BMW was still gone. She usually got home around 6, unless she was working late, or meeting Alexei Petrov, or planning my murder. I went to my workshop in the garage and opened the gun safe. Inside was my old service pistol from my army days, along with a hunting rifle and a shotgun. I'd kept them clean and functional, more out of habit than expectation of ever needing them again. I loaded the pistol and tucked it into my waistband, then grabbed a box of ammunition. Next, I went through the house systematically, looking for things I'd missed before. Sarah's home office yielded nothing obvious, just legal files and case notes that meant nothing to me. But her laptop was password protected, which was new. She'd never bothered with passwords before. In our bedroom, I found a new cell phone hidden in her jewelry box, a burner phone with a Chicago area code. The call history showed dozens of calls to and from the same number over the past 3 months. The text messages were in Russian. I photographed everything with my own phone, then put the burner back exactly where I'd found it. The waiting was the worst part. I sat in my kitchen, drinking coffee that tasted like ash, watching the clock crawl toward evening. Every car that drove past made me tense up. Every sound from the neighbors' yards made me reach for my gun. At 5:45 p.m., Sarah's BMW pulled into the driveway. I met her at the front door, trying to look normal. She was beautiful in her sharp business suit, her dark hair pulled back in a professional bun. She looked like the woman I'd married, the woman who'd borne my children and shared my bed for 18 years. She also looked like a stranger. You're home early, she said, kissing my cheek. Her lips were cold. Where are the kids? At my parents' place. Figured they could use some grandparent time. Sarah frowned. You didn't tell me you were planning that. Spur of the moment decision. They'll be back tomorrow. I watched her face carefully. How was work? Busy. The Morrison case is heating up. Sorry, different Morrison, no relation, and I had to stay late to prep for depositions. She moved past me toward the kitchen. I'm exhausted. Mind if we just order pizza tonight? Every word was a lie, delivered with practiced ease. I wondered how long she'd been lying to me. Months? Years? Sure. Pizza sounds good. We went through the motions of a normal evening. Ordered food, watched the news, made small talk about work and the neighbors. Sarah seemed relaxed, almost cheerful. If I hadn't seen Victor's photo, hadn't found the burner phone, I would have thought everything was perfectly normal. At 10:30, Sarah yawned and announced she was going to bed early. She kissed me goodnight, another cold peck on the cheek, and headed upstairs. I waited until I heard the shower running, then went to my workshop and retrieved a small surveillance camera I'd used for security jobs. I hid it in the living room with a clear view of the front door, then settled into my recliner with my gun in my lap. Victor had said before sunrise. That gave them maybe 7 hours. I didn't have to wait that long. At 11:47 p.m., headlights swept across the front windows. A black sedan pulled into my driveway, followed by a white van. 4 men got out, moving with military precision. They wore dark clothing and carried duffel bags that probably didn't contain pool cleaning supplies. The leader was tall and lean, with Slavic features. Alexei Petrov, I presumed. Sarah's boyfriend, my would-be executioner. I turned off all the lights and moved to the window. The men were surrounding the house, two heading for the backyard, two approaching the front door, professional, coordinated, deadly. They thought they were hunting a clueless suburban dad who'd stumbled onto something he shouldn't have seen. They were about to learn different. I pulled out my phone and dialed 911, then immediately hung up. The call would show in the records, establishing that I'd tried to contact police before things went sideways. Then I texted Victor. "They're here." His response came back immediately. "Good luck." The front door exploded inward. I was ready for them. The first man through the door caught my shotgun blast center mass, the beanbag round sending him flying backward into his partner. Non-lethal, but definitely attitude adjusting. I'd switched out the buckshot for beanbag rounds. I wanted them alive and talking. "Sarah!" I shouted toward the stairs. "Company's here!" The second man was raising some kind of submachine gun when I put another beanbag round into his shoulder. He spun around and went down hard, his weapon skittering across the hardwood floor. Footsteps pounded on the back deck. The rear team was coming through the kitchen. I dropped the shotgun and drew my pistol, moving toward the hallway that connected the living room to the kitchen. "Federal agents!" one of them shouted. "Drop your weapon!" I almost laughed. Federal agents, my ass. Real feds announced themselves before they kicked down doors. A figure appeared in the kitchen doorway. I put 2 rounds center mass. Rubber bullets this time. Painful but not fatal. The man doubled over with a grunt and stumbled backward. "Jack? Jack, what's happening?" Sarah's voice from upstairs, high and frightened. "Academy Award performance. Why don't you come down and ask your boyfriend?" I called back. The fourth man was trying to flank me through the dining room. I caught a glimpse of movement and put a rubber bullet through the doorway. It caught him in the thigh, and he went down cursing in what sounded like Russian. "Alexei." Sarah's voice again, but different now. Not frightened, angry. "What the hell are you doing?" So much for maintaining her cover. I heard footsteps on the stairs, but they weren't coming down. They were going up, toward the master bedroom. Sarah was running. The first man I'd shot was trying to get back on his feet. I walked over and put the barrel of my pistol against his forehead. "Let's have a conversation," I said. His name was Dmitri, and he was very eager to talk once I explained that the beanbag rounds could be easily swapped out for the real thing. He told me about the operation, how they'd been using Sarah to gather intelligence on her clients, particularly the defense contractors and government officials who trusted her with their legal problems, how Alexei had seduced her over the course of 6 months, playing on her ego and her dissatisfaction with suburban life. "She thinks she is spy," Dmitri said through gritted teeth. "Thinks she is important. Really, she is just useful idiot. And tonight we clean up. You ask too many questions, notice too many things. Alexei says you are becoming problem. What about my kids?" Dmitri's silence told me everything I needed to know. I zip-tied all 4 men with restraints for my work truck, then went upstairs to find Sarah. She was in our bedroom, frantically packing a suitcase. The burner phone was in her hand. "Going somewhere?" I asked. She spun around, her face flushed with anger and fear. "Jack, you don't understand. These people, they'll kill us both if we don't cooperate." "Funny thing about that," I said, leaning against the doorframe. "They were planning to kill us anyway." Sarah's mask finally slipped completely. The loving wife, the concerned mother, the respected attorney, all of it fell away, leaving someone I didn't recognize. "You stupid, small-minded man," she snarled. "Do you have any idea what you've done? What you've cost me?" "Enlighten me." "I was building something important, something that mattered, not like your pathetic little repair shop or this suffocating suburban prison." She gestured wildly around the bedroom. "Alexei showed me what I could be, what I could accomplish. By betraying your country? By thinking bigger than this." She threw her hands up. "God, Jack, you're so limited, so ordinary. I've been dying slowly in this marriage for years." The words stung, but they also clarified things. This wasn't just about espionage or money. This was about Sarah's fundamental contempt for the life we'd built together. For me, for our children. "What about Emma and Danny?" Something flickered in her eyes. "Guilt, maybe, or just annoyance at being reminded of inconvenient details. They'll be fine. Kids are resilient. You are going to let them kill your own children." "Don't be dramatic," Alexei said. "Alexei lied to you about everything else. Why would you believe him about this?" For the first time, uncertainty crept into her expression. "He loves me. He's using you. And when you stopped being useful, He was going to dispose of you too. I pulled out my phone and showed her the photos I'd taken of Dmitri's identification. Your boyfriend's real name is Alexei Volkov. He's GAR, Russian military intelligence. He's got a wife and 3 kids back in Moscow. Sarah stared at the screen, her face cycling through disbelief, anger, and finally something that might have been heartbreak. You're lying. Check his wallet. It's in his jacket downstairs. She pushed past me and ran down to the living room, where the 4 Russians were zip-tied and glaring. She went through Alexei's pockets with desperate fingers, pulling out his real passport, photos of his family, documents in Cyrillic script. The sound she made was somewhere between a sob and a scream. Sarah, Alexei said, his accent thicker now that the pretense was over. Please, you must listen. She slapped him hard enough to snap his head sideways. Shut up. Just shut up. I called Victor. It's over. 4 packages ready for pickup. Police? Not yet. I want some answers first. Victor arrived 20 minutes later with 2 other men who looked like they could bench press small cars. They loaded the Russians into the white van without ceremony. What happens to them? I asked. They go home, Victor said, with message that American suburbs are not as soft as they think. Sarah was sitting on the couch, staring at nothing. The suitcase lay open beside her, half-packed clothes spilling onto the floor. What about her? Victor nodded toward my wife. I looked at Sarah, really looked at her. The woman who'd shared my bed for 18 years, who'd given birth to my children, who'd just tried to have us all killed for a foreign intelligence service. That's up to the FBI, I said, but I was lying. I had other plans for Sarah, much more personal plans. The FBI took Sarah into custody 3 days later, but not before I'd had time to implement my own form of justice. See, the thing about being married to a lawyer is that you pick up a few things about evidence and leverage. And the thing about running a repair business is that you develop a certain practical approach to problem solving. I spent those 3 days methodically destroying Sarah's life. First, I copied every file from her burner phone and her laptop. The Russian communications were damning enough, but what really interested me were her conversations with Monica Chen, her supposed best friend from the law firm. Monica had been the one to introduce Sarah to Alexei. She'd arranged their first meeting, coached Sarah on what information would be valuable, and helped her rationalize the betrayal as something sophisticated and worldly. Monica wasn't just complicit, she was the architect of the whole operation, so I paid Monica a visit. She lived in a sleek downtown condo that screamed expensive taste and flexible morals. When she answered the door, she was wearing silk pajamas and holding a glass of wine, clearly expecting someone else. Jack? What are you doing here? Where's Sarah? Sarah's indisposed, I said, pushing past her into the apartment. We need to talk. Monica's condo was all sharp angles and cold surfaces, like something from an architecture magazine. No family photos, no personal touches, nothing that suggested human warmth or connection. It suited her perfectly. I don't know what Sarah told you, Monica said, backing toward her kitchen island, but I had nothing to do with her problems. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recorded conversations between Sarah and Monica. Monica's voice, clear as day, discussing which of Sarah's clients would be most valuable to their Russian friends. Monica's face went white. Your girlfriend was sloppy with operational security, I said. Kept everything on her phone like a digital diary. You can't prove anything. I don't have to prove anything. I just have to share it. I held up a flash drive. Copies of every communication between you and Sarah, every file she stole, every client she betrayed. I wonder what the partners at Morrison, Klein & Associates would think about their star attorney selling client information to foreign intelligence. Monica sank onto her designer couch. What do you want? I want you to understand something, I said, sitting across from her. You destroyed my family. You turned my wife into a traitor and put my children in danger. You did it for money and excitement and because you thought you were cleverer than everyone else. Jack, please, I'm not finished. My voice stayed calm, conversational. You're going to resign from the law firm tomorrow morning. You're going to liquidate your assets and donate every penny to a veterans charity. And then you're going to disappear. I can't just, or I release everything to the FBI, the State Bar Association, the media, and every client whose information you helped steal. I stood up. Your choice. Monica chose wisely. The law firm was my next stop. I had a meeting with the senior partner, James Morrison. No relation, despite the name. He was a silver-haired shark who'd built his reputation on discretion and client confidentiality. "Mr. Morrison," he said, gesturing to a chair in his corner office, "I understand you have some concerns about your wife's conduct." That's one way to put it. I laid out everything: the Russian operation, the stolen client files, Monica's involvement, the attempted murder at my house. Morrison listened without interruption, his face growing paler with each revelation. "This is catastrophic," he said finally. "If this becomes public, it doesn't have to," I said, "assuming we can reach an understanding." Morrison was a smart man. He understood leverage. "What do you want?" "Sarah's partnership share, her pension, her profit sharing, everything." I leaned forward. "She betrayed your clients and your firm. The least you can do is make sure her victims are compensated. That's substantial. Not as substantial as the lawsuits you'll face when this gets out." Morrison agreed to my terms within the hour. But I wasn't done with Sarah yet. Not even close. She was being held in federal custody, pending trial. But I still had ways to reach her. I sent a single message through her attorney: "Check your bank accounts." Sarah had always been proud of her financial independence, her separate accounts and investment portfolio. She'd built them up over years of careful planning and aggressive saving. They represented her security, her freedom, her proof that she was more than just a suburban housewife. I took all of it. Every account, every investment, every asset she'd accumulated. It was surprisingly easy when you had power of attorney documents and 18 years of shared financial history. I liquidated everything and donated it to organizations that helped families of military personnel, the people Sarah had betrayed. The house was next. Since it was jointly owned, I couldn't sell it outright, but I could make it uninhabitable. I hired a demolition crew to renovate the kitchen, bathroom, and master bedroom. When they were done, the house looked like a war zone. Then I had the pool filled with concrete. Emma and Danny came home from their grandparents' house to find their mother under federal indictment and their home destroyed. I sat them down in what used to be our living room and told them everything. "Mom's a spy?" Danny asked, his 14-year-old voice cracking with disbelief. "Mom's a traitor," Emma corrected, her 16-year-old cynicism cutting straight to the heart of it. "What happens now?" Danny asked. "Now we start over," I said. "Somewhere else, with new names if necessary. Your mother made choices that put us all in danger, and we have to live with the consequences." "Will we see her again?" Danny's question was barely a whisper. I looked at my son, this good kid who'd done nothing wrong but have the misfortune of being born to a woman who valued excitement over family, ideology over love. "That's up to you," I said. "When you're older, if you want to visit her in prison, that's your choice. But right now, we need to focus on keeping you safe." Emma put her arm around her brother. "We'll be okay, Danny. We've got Dad." The trial was a media sensation. Sarah's story had everything: suburban treachery, foreign espionage, attempted murder. The prosecutors painted her as a cold-blooded traitor who'd sold out her country for money and thrills. Her defense team tried to portray her as a manipulated victim, seduced by sophisticated foreign operatives. I testified for the prosecution. Told the jury about the night 4 Russian agents broke into my home intending to murder my family. Described finding the burner phone and the stolen files. Explained how my wife had chosen espionage over her children's safety. Sarah watched me from the defendant's table, her face a mask of controlled hatred. She'd lost weight in federal custody, and her expensive clothes had been replaced by a plain gray suit. She looked smaller somehow, diminished. When I finished testifying, she mouthed something at me. I couldn't hear the words, but I could read her lips. "I hate you," I mouthed back. "Good." The jury convicted her on all counts: espionage, conspiracy, accessory to attempted murder. The judge sentenced her to 25 years in federal prison. As the bailiffs led her away in shackles, Sarah turned for one last look at the courtroom. Her eyes found mine, and for just a moment, I saw not the traitor or the spy, but the woman I'd married 18 years ago. The woman who'd held my hand during Emma's difficult birth, who'd cried with joy when Danny took his first steps, who'd promised to love and honor me until death do us part. Then the moment passed, and she was just another criminal being led away to pay for her crimes. I felt nothing at all. 6 months after Sarah's sentencing, I got a call that changed everything again. "Mr. Morrison, this is Agent Patricia Williams, FBI. We need to talk." I was in my new apartment across town, helping Danny with his algebra homework, while Emma practiced for her driving test. We'd settled into a routine of sorts: work, school, family dinners, homework help. Normal life, or as normal as it could be when your wife was serving 25 to life for espionage. What about your wife's case? There have been some developments. Agent Williams met me at a coffee shop downtown. She was a compact woman in her 40s, with steel gray hair and the kind of steady gaze that suggested she'd seen everything and been surprised by none of it. Sarah's been talking, she said without preamble. About what? Everything. The Russian operation was bigger than we initially thought. Your wife and Monica Chen were just two assets in a network that included lawyers, accountants, real estate agents, even a few local politicians. Williams stirred her coffee methodically. Sarah's been naming names in exchange for a reduced sentence. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. How reduced? 10 years, possibility of parole in 7, for treason, for cooperation in a matter of national security. I stared at Agent Williams, trying to process what she was telling me. Sarah, who'd been willing to let Russian agents murder her own children, was going to be back on the streets in 7 years because she'd decided to rat out her co-conspirators. There's more, Williams continued. The Russians have put a bounty on her head, and on yours. They're not happy about their network being rolled up. How much? 50,000 for Sarah, 25 for you. Not enough to attract the high-end professionals, but plenty to interest the desperate and stupid. Great. So now I had to worry about amateur assassins along with everything else. What kind of protection are you offering? Witness protection for all 3 of you, new identities, relocation, the whole package. I thought about Emma, who was finally starting to make friends at her new school. About Danny, who joined the chess club and seemed to be finding his footing. About the life we were slowly rebuilding from the wreckage Sarah had left behind. I need to think about it. Williams nodded. Don't think too long. The bounty went active yesterday. I drove home in a daze, my mind churning with possibilities and problems. Emma was in her room doing homework when I got back, earbuds in, lost in her own world. Danny was on the couch playing video games, his algebra book forgotten on the coffee table. Normal teenage behavior, normal problems. The kind of ordinary life Sarah had found so suffocating. I was making dinner when the doorbell rang. Danny jumped up to answer it before I could stop him. Through the kitchen window, I saw a delivery van in the driveway. Nothing suspicious about that. We ordered online constantly these days. Dad! Danny's voice was tight with fear. You need to see this. I walked into the living room to find Danny holding a package. No return address, no delivery confirmation, just my name written in block letters across brown paper. Put it down, I said quietly. Step away from it. Is it? Just step away, son. I called Agent Williams. She arrived with a bomb disposal team 20 minutes later. They evacuated the apartment building and spent 2 hours x-raying and analyzing the package before finally opening it. Inside was a cell phone and a note. Answer when it rings. Come alone. Your children's safety depends on your cooperation. The phone rang as the bomb tech handed it to me. Mr. Morrison, the voice was accented, professional. You have caused considerable inconvenience. Who is this? Someone who would prefer this situation be resolved quietly. Your wife has been indiscreet in her conversations with federal agents. This creates problems for many people. Not my problem. Oh, but it is. You see, we know where your children go to school. We know their schedules, their friends, their habits. Accidents can happen so easily to young people. My blood turned to ice. If you touch my kids, that is entirely up to you. There is a storage unit on Industrial Boulevard, Unit 247. You will go there tonight at midnight, alone. We will discuss how to resolve this situation in a way that benefits everyone. The line went dead. Agent Williams was listening on a recording device. It's a trap, obviously. Obviously. We can set up surveillance, have a team ready. No, I pocketed the phone. They'll be watching for that. Jack, you can't seriously be thinking of going alone. I looked at Emma and Danny, who were standing in the hallway, listening to every word. My kids, who'd already lost their mother to espionage and betrayal, who'd been uprooted from their home and their friends because of choices they'd never made. Get them into witness protection, I said. Tonight. New identities, new location, the whole package. What about you? I'm going to end this. Williams shook her head. That's not how this works. We don't let civilians run solo operations against foreign intelligence services. You're not letting me do anything. I'm choosing to do it. I spent the evening with Emma and Danny, helping them pack the few belongings they'd want to take to their new lives. Emma was angry, at me, at Sarah, at the whole situation. This is bullshit, Dad. We shouldn't have to run. Language. Screw language. Mom screws up our entire lives, and now we have to disappear because some Russians want revenge? It's not fair. She was right, of course. None of it was fair. But fairness was a luxury we couldn't afford. Sometimes life doesn't give you good choices, I said. Sometimes you just have to pick the least bad option and live with it. Danny was quieter, more philosophical. Will we see you again? I don't know, buddy. I hope so. Are you going to kill the bad guys? Out of the mouths of babes. I'm going to try to make them go away. At 11 p.m., Agent Williams and her team picked up Emma and Danny. They'd be in a safe house by morning, starting the process of becoming new people with new names and new histories. Emma hugged me tight. Don't you dare get yourself killed, old man. I'll do my best. Danny's hug lasted longer. I love you, Dad. I love you too, son. Both of you. Remember that no matter what happens. After they left, I went to my workshop and opened the gun safe one more time. The service pistol, the hunting rifle, extra ammunition. I also grabbed some items from my repair supplies, wire, electrical components, a few other things that might come in handy. Then I drove to Industrial Boulevard to keep my appointment with the Russians. The storage facility was a sprawling complex of metal buildings and roll-up doors, dimly lit and mostly deserted at midnight. Unit 247 was in the back corner, away from the main road and any potential witnesses. I parked 50 yards away and approached on foot, staying in the shadows between buildings. The unit door was partially open, spilling yellow light onto the concrete. Two men stood outside, smoking cigarettes and trying to look casual, professional muscle, probably armed. Inside the unit, I could see two more figures. One was tall and lean, Alexei Volkov, Sarah's former boyfriend, apparently back in the country despite being deported after his arrest. The other was shorter, older, wearing an expensive suit that looked out of place in a storage facility. I circled around to the back of the building and found what I was looking for, an electrical junction box that fed power to this section of units. A few snips with my wire cutters, and the entire back corner went dark. The Russians reacted exactly as I'd hoped. The two guards moved toward the junction box to investigate, while the men inside the unit started barking orders in Russian. In the confusion, I slipped inside through a gap between buildings. The unit was set up like a makeshift office. Folding table, chairs, laptop computer, stacks of documents. Alexei was on his phone, presumably calling for backup. The older man was checking a pistol with the practiced efficiency of someone who'd done it many times before. I shot out the overhead light with a suppressed .22 I'd borrowed from my hunting supplies, plunged the unit into darkness and chaos. Gentlemen, I said from the shadows, let's talk.